A black boy helps a blind old man in airport without knowing who he actually was. Next day. Life has a way of testing us in the most unexpected moments. Sometimes, the choices we make, no matter how small, can lead to consequences far beyond what we ever imagined. This is the story of a young man, his simple act of kindness, and how it changed his life forever. Ryan Carter weaved his way through the crowded terminal of Penn Station. The sound of rolling suitcases and hurried footsteps echoing around him. It was early afternoon, but the rush never seemed to end. He clutched his worn-out backpack, the straps fraying from years of use, and adjusted the hood of his jacket to block out the noise. He couldn't afford distractions, not today. This was his last chance. Ryan was on his way to an important job interview at a local tech company. It wasn't a glamorous role, but it was a steady paycheck, something he desperately needed. His mom's medical bills were piling up, and the thought of her worsening condition was like a weight pressing on his chest. Failure wasn't an option, but the city didn't make things easy. The train had been delayed, and now every passing minute felt like sand slipping through his fingers. As he navigated the bustling station, Ryan's sharp blue eyes darted toward a staircase leading down to the platform. Standing there was an older man, his hand hovering uncertainly over a railing. The man wore a simple gray coat, and a walking cane was tucked under his arm. His dark glasses and the slow way he turned his head gave away his blindness. Ryan hesitated. People swarmed past the man, some glancing briefly but none stopping. His mind raced. He didn't have time to stop, not if he wanted to make it to the interview on time. But something about the man's lost expression tugged at him. Ryan clenched his fists, muttering under his breath. Just 1 minute, he told himself as he turned back. He approached the man cautiously, his voice raised just enough to be heard over the noise. "Excuse me, sir, do you need help?" The man's face lit up with relief. "Oh, thank you, young man. Yes, I can't seem to find the stairs. Everything feels a bit confusing here." Ryan swallowed, glancing at his watch. Every second ticked by louder in his ears. But he nodded. "No problem, I'll help you." Taking the man's arm gently, Ryan guided him step by step down the crowded staircase. It wasn't easy. Commuters brushed past them with annoyed looks, and someone even muttered, "Hurry it up," under their breath. Ryan ignored them, focusing on the old man's slow, careful steps. "What's your name?" the man asked as they reached the bottom. "Ryan," he replied. "Yours?" "Edward. Edward Harper," the man said, a warm smile crossing his face. "Thank you, Ryan. I don't know what I would have done without your help." Ryan smiled faintly. "It's no problem, Mr. Harper. You good from here?" "Yes. Yes. Thank you again," Edward said, his hand lingering on Ryan's arm for a moment before letting go. "You're a good kid." Ryan glanced at his watch again. His stomach dropped. He was running late, really late now. But he offered Edward a final nod before rushing back into the sea of people, his heart pounding as he dodged hurried travelers. By the time Ryan reached the office for his interview, the receptionist barely glanced at him. "I'm sorry," she said. "Interviews ended 15 minutes ago." Ryan tried to explain, his words tumbling over each other. But her apologetic smile stayed firm. "You can apply again in the next cycle." As he stepped back out into the street, the weight of disappointment settled in his chest. He had sacrificed his one chance for a stranger, and now he had nothing to show for it. But as he walked home, he couldn't help but remember Edward's smile and the warmth in his voice. Maybe it wasn't all for nothing. The next morning, Ryan woke up to the sound of faint knocking at the front door of his small apartment. The sun streamed weakly through the cracked blinds, and the clock on his bedside table read 7:45 a.m. He groaned, his body still heavy with the disappointment of the day before. Dragging himself out of bed, Ryan shuffled to the door, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He wasn't expecting anyone, he barely had visitors these days. Opening the door, he froze. Standing on the threshold was a man in a sharp black suit, holding a polished leather briefcase. Behind him, a sleek black car idled at the curb. The man's presence felt out of place in the run-down neighborhood. Ryan blinked, his brain struggling to catch up. "Ryan Carter?" the man asked, his tone professional but not unkind. Yeah, Ryan replied hesitantly. "Who's asking?" The man extended a hand. "My name is Alan Whitaker. I work for Edward Harper. He asked me to deliver something to you." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Edward Harper, the old man he helped at the station. Confusion and curiosity warred within him as Alan handed over an envelope, its weight substantial in Ryan's hand. The paper felt expensive, the kind of stationery you'd expect from someone important. "Mr. Harper wanted to express his gratitude for your assistance yesterday," Alan continued. "He was quite impressed by your kindness." Ryan furrowed his brow, opening the envelope cautiously. Inside was a neatly folded letter along with what appeared to be a check. His eyes widened as he scanned the contents. The letter read, "Dear Ryan, yesterday, you chose to help a stranger in need, even when it came at a personal cost. Your selflessness did not go unnoticed. I'd like to offer you an opportunity, an internship at my company, Harper Enterprises. This is more than a job, it's a chance to prove yourself and build a future. If you're interested, the car waiting outside will take you to my office at 10 a.m. today. I look forward to seeing you there. Warm regards, Edward Harper." Ryan's hands trembled as he reread the letter, his gaze shifting to the check. His breath caught in his throat. The amount was enough to cover a significant portion of his mom's medical bills, something he hadn't even dared to dream of. Alan's calm voice interrupted his thoughts. "If you'd like to accept the offer, I'll return to pick you up at 9:30. Please be ready." Ryan looked up, his voice barely above a whisper. This is real." Alan smiled faintly. "Very real, Mr. Carter. Mr. Harper doesn't make empty gestures." Before Ryan could respond, Alan tipped his head politely and walked back to the car, leaving Ryan standing in the doorway. Stunned, he glanced down at the letter again, the words swimming in his mind. An internship at Harper Enterprises. The name rang a bell. Harper Enterprises was one of the most well-known corporations in the city, with its fingerprints in everything from finance to technology. Ryan had read about it in passing but never in his wildest dreams imagined himself stepping through its doors. He looked around his small apartment, his gaze lingering on the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter. His mom's soft coughing filtered through the thin walls of her bedroom, a stark reminder of why he had been chasing jobs so desperately. Shaking off his disbelief, Ryan knew what he had to do. This wasn't just a lucky break, it was a lifeline. By 9:25, Ryan stood outside, feeling both nervous and out of place. He had put on the best clothes he could find, a plain button-up shirt and a pair of slacks that had seen better days. His shoes were scuffed, but he had polished them as best he could. He clutched his backpack, unsure of what else to bring. Right on time, the sleek black car pulled up again. Alan stepped out, holding the door open. "Ready, Mr. Carter?" Ryan nodded, swallowing hard as he climbed into the back seat. The interior smelled of leather and faint cologne, and the quiet hum of the engine made him feel like he had stepped into another world. The drive through the city passed in tense silence, Ryan's mind racing with questions. What was this internship? Why had Edward Harper chosen him? The car came to a smooth stop in front of a gleaming skyscraper. Ryan's stomach churned as he stepped out, craning his neck to take in the sheer height of the building. The Harper Enterprises logo glinted in the sunlight above the entrance, a symbol of power and prestige. Alan led him inside, where a polished marble lobby buzzed with activity. Ryan felt out of place amid the suits and heels, but he kept his head high, determined not to let his nerves show. "Mr. Harper is expecting you," Alan said, guiding him to a private elevator. As the doors slid shut, Ryan took a deep breath. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready to face it. The elevator's soft chime broke the silence as it arrived at the top floor of Harper Enterprises. The doors slid open to reveal a spacious, sunlit office with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the bustling city below. Ryan stepped out hesitantly, feeling like he had walked into a different universe. The air smelled faintly of leather and fresh coffee, and the quiet hum of productivity contrasted starkly with the chaotic station he'd been in just a day ago. At the center of the room stood Edward Harper, looking entirely different from the lost, vulnerable man Ryan had helped the day before. Today, Edward appeared every bit the part of a powerful executive. His tailored suit immaculate, his silver hair neatly combed. He smiled warmly as Ryan approached, extending a hand. "Ryan, I'm so glad you came," Edward said, his voice calm and steady. Ryan shook his hand, his grip firm despite his nerves. "Thank you, Mr. Harper. I wasn't sure what to expect." Edward chuckled softly. "I imagine this is all a bit overwhelming. Please, take a seat." He gestured to a pair of plush chairs near his desk. Ryan sat down, clutching his backpack on his lap. His eyes wandered around the office, taking in the modern decor and the subtle displays of wealth, artwork on the walls, sleek furniture, and a neatly organized desk with no sign of clutter. Edward leaned back in his chair, studying Ryan with a thoughtful expression. "Yesterday, you made a choice that most people wouldn't. You stopped to help a stranger when you had every reason to walk away. That kind of character is rare." Ryan's cheeks flushed. "It was just the right thing to do. I didn't think it was a big deal." "That's exactly why it's remarkable," Edward replied, his voice steady. "You didn't do it for recognition or reward. You did it because it was the right thing to do. And that's the kind of person I want in my company." Ryan blinked, the weight of Edward's words sinking in. "But I don't have any experience. I don't even know what I'd be doing here." Edward smiled. "That's the point of the internship. It's a chance for you to learn. You'll start at the ground level. But if you work hard and show the same determination you did yesterday, there's no limit to where you can go." Ryan swallowed, his throat dry. I don't even know what to say. This feels unreal." "Say yes," Edward said simply, his tone kind but firm. "Say yes, and we'll take it from there." Ryan hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Yes, I want to try." Edward's smile widened. "Good, let's get you started." Within an hour, Ryan found himself seated at a modest desk in a shared office space on the 11th floor. It wasn't as glamorous as Edward's suite, but it was a world away from anything Ryan had ever experienced. Clara, a friendly woman in her late 20s, was assigned to be his mentor. She had an easygoing demeanor that put Ryan at ease despite his nerves. "All right, Ryan," Clara said, handing him a stack of folders. "We'll start with the basics. These are reports that need to be reviewed and organized. It's not the most exciting work, but it's important. Think you can handle it?" Ryan nodded quickly. "Yeah, of course." "Good," Clara said with a smile. "If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. No one expects you to know everything right away." As Ryan dove into the paperwork, he realized just how much he had to learn. The reports were filled with technical terms and abbreviations he didn't understand. But he was determined to figure it out. He scribbled notes in the margins, looking up unfamiliar terms on his phone whenever he had a spare moment. The hours passed quickly, and by lunchtime, Ryan had made significant progress. Clara stopped by his desk, her smile approving. "You're doing great, Ryan. Want to grab some lunch? There's a cafe downstairs that's pretty good." Ryan hesitated, glancing at the clock. He didn't want to take too much time away from work, but Clara seemed to sense his reluctance and added, "Trust me, you'll work better if you take a break. Besides, I need to eat too." Reluctantly, Ryan agreed, following Clara to the elevator. The cafe was bustling with employees from the building, but Clara waved to a few people as they found a table by the window. Ryan ordered a simple sandwich, trying to ignore the prices that were far higher than what he was used to. As they ate, Clara leaned forward slightly. "So, Ryan, what's your story? How do you end up here?" Ryan hesitated. He wasn't sure how much to share, but Clara's open demeanor made him feel comfortable. "I've been looking for work for a while," he said. "My mom's sick, and the bills, they've been piling up. Yesterday, I was on my way to a job interview, but I missed it because I stopped to help Mr. Harper." Clara nodded, her expression softening. "That's tough, but I think it says a lot about you that you were willing to make that sacrifice. Most people wouldn't." Ryan shrugged, feeling a bit awkward under her praise. "I didn't think it would lead to anything like this." Clara smiled. "Well, it did, and from what I've seen so far, you're going to do great here." Back at his desk, Ryan threw himself into the work with renewed focus. The afternoon flew by, and by the time the clock hit 5 p.m., he had completed the tasks Clara had assigned him. As he packed up, Clara stopped by his desk. "Great first day, Ryan. You've got a good work ethic. Keep it up, and you'll go far." Ryan smiled, feeling a swell of pride. "Thanks, Clara. I'll see you tomorrow." As he left the building and stepped into the cool evening air, Ryan felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. For the first time in months, he felt like he was moving forward, like the future held more than just uncertainty and struggle. When he got home, his mom was sitting up in bed, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Hey, sweetheart, how was your day?" Ryan sat down beside her, pulling out the letter and check from Edward Harper. "Mom, you're not going to believe this." Ryan's mom stared at the letter in disbelief, her frail hands trembling as she held the paper. The check lay neatly beside it, its amount still causing Ryan's heart to race whenever he glanced at it. "This," her voice broke as she looked up at him, tears welling in her eyes. "Ryan, this is incredible. I don't even know what to say." Ryan smiled faintly, sitting beside her on the edge of the bed. "I don't either, Mom. It feels like everything's changing so fast." His mom reached out and took his hand, her grip weak but steady. "You deserve this, Ryan. You've worked so hard, and now you're getting a chance to show what you can do. I'm so proud of you." Ryan swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. "I'm doing this for us. Mom, this check, it's going to help us get ahead on your treatments. You'll finally be able to see the doctor more often." She smiled, a hint of her old strength shining through. And I know you'll do amazing things. Sweetheart, don't worry about me, focus on this opportunity. The next morning, Ryan woke up with a renewed sense of determination. The past few days felt like a whirlwind, but he was starting to adjust to his new routine. He put on the same slacks and button-up shirt, brushing his hair back and tightening the laces of his worn shoes. They didn't match the polished appearance of most employees at Harper Enterprises. But Ryan carried himself with quiet confidence as he stepped into the black car waiting outside. At the office, Clara greeted him with her usual bright smile, holding a stack of folders. "Morning, Ryan. Ready for day 2? Ryan grinned, feeling more comfortable than the day before. "Absolutely. What's on the agenda?" Clara handed him the folders, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "Today, you're going to shadow a team working on one of our client projects. It's a chance for you to see how everything comes together, from research to execution." Ryan's excitement mixed with a touch of nerves as he followed Clara to a small conference room. Inside, a team of 5 people sat around a table covered in laptops, documents, and coffee cups. They looked up as Ryan and Clara entered. "Everyone, this is Ryan," Clara said. "He's interning with us, and Mr. Harper thought it'd be good for him to see how we manage projects." The team smiled and nodded. And one of them, a man in his mid-30s with neatly combed hair and a kind demeanor, stood to shake Ryan's hand. "Welcome, Ryan. I'm Greg, the team lead. Feel free to jump in with any questions." Ryan took a seat, his notebook and pen at the ready. Over the next hour, he watched in awe as the team discussed strategies, reviewed data, and brainstormed creative solutions for a client's campaign. They spoke with confidence and a clear understanding of their roles. And Ryan couldn't help but admire how seamlessly they worked together. Occasionally, Greg would turn to Ryan, explaining a concept or breaking down an acronym that appeared in their discussions. "This is the kind of detail our clients expect," Greg said at one point, tapping on a graph. "Precision is everything." Ryan nodded, scribbling notes furiously. He wanted to absorb every bit of knowledge he could. He could see now why Harper Enterprises had such a stellar reputation. This wasn't just business, it was an art form. At lunch, Clara found Ryan at his desk, poring over the notes he'd taken during the meeting. She leaned against the doorway, crossing her arms. "You're really getting into it." "Huh?" Ryan looked up, grinning sheepishly. I want to make sure I don't fall behind. There's so much to learn." Clara chuckled. "You're doing fine, Ryan. More than fine, actually. But don't forget to take a break. Come on, let's grab lunch." This time, Ryan felt more at ease at the cafe downstairs. He even managed to crack a few jokes with Clara, who seemed genuinely impressed by his dedication. Over sandwiches, they talked not just about work but about life. Clara shared stories of her early days at the company, the mistakes she'd made, and the mentors who had guided her. "You remind me a lot of myself," Clara said, smiling, eager, hard-working, and a little nervous. Ryan laughed. "Nervous might be an understatement." "Trust me," Clara said, her tone softening. "You're going to do great here. Just keep doing what you're doing." The afternoon brought a surprise, a one-on-one meeting with Edward Harper himself. Ryan's heart raced as Clara escorted him back to the top floor. When he entered Edward's office, the older man greeted him warmly, gesturing for him to sit. "I hear you've been doing well, Ryan," Edward said, sitting across from him. "Clara and the team have nothing but good things to say about your first 2 days." Ryan felt his face heat up. "Thank you, sir. I'm trying to learn as much as I can." Edward nodded, his expression serious but kind. Good. That's what this internship is about. But I want you to know something. Ryan, you're not here just because of yesterday. You're here because I see potential in you. The way you handled yourself. The way you prioritized helping someone over your own needs. That's rare. And it's exactly the kind of character we need in this company. Ryan swallowed, his throat tight with emotion. I don't want to let you down. Sir, you won't, Edward said confidently. Just keep showing up, working hard, and being the person you already are. The rest will follow. As Ryan left Edward's office, he felt a new sense of purpose. This wasn't just a job or a lucky break. It was a chance to build something meaningful. Not just for himself but for his mom and their future. That evening, as Ryan walked into his small apartment, his mom's face lit up. How was today, sweetheart? She asked, her voice full of warmth. Ryan smiled as he sat beside her. It was amazing, Mom. I think I'm starting to find my place. She reached out and squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with pride. I never doubted you for a second. Ryan, for the first time in a long time, Ryan felt like he was on the right path. And as he went to bed that night, he couldn't help but feel excited for what tomorrow would bring. Ryan woke early the next morning, the sunlight filtering through his window and casting a warm glow over the room. There was no hesitation in his movements as he got ready. Each step felt purposeful. The past few days had been a whirlwind, but something inside him had shifted. For the first time, he felt like he was becoming the person he was meant to be. His mom was already awake, sitting up in bed with a small smile on her face as he peeked into her room. Good morning, sweetheart, she said, her voice a little stronger than usual. Morning, Mom, Ryan replied, stepping inside. How are you feeling today? She nodded, the smile on her face unwavering. Better, knowing you're doing so well. I can't tell you how proud I am. Ryan sat beside her, squeezing her hand gently. I wouldn't be here without you. Mom, everything I'm doing is for us. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she cupped his face. And I know you're going to go far. Just don't forget to believe in yourself along the way. Ryan left the apartment with her words ringing in his ears. By the time he arrived at Harper Enterprises, the nervous energy he'd felt on his first day had faded, replaced by a quiet confidence. Clara greeted him in the lobby, her usual stack of folders in hand. Good morning, Ryan, she said with a grin. You're just in time. Mr. Harper wants us to prep for another client meeting this afternoon. He asked if you'd like to sit in again. Ryan blinked, surprised. He wants me there. Clara nodded. Of course. You did great at the last one. He sees something in you. Ryan, we all do. The morning passed in a flurry of preparation. Clara guided Ryan through more detailed aspects of client relations, teaching him how to interpret data and craft clear, concise recommendations. Ryan soaked up every bit of knowledge, asking questions when he didn't understand and taking meticulous notes. By the time the client meeting rolled around, Ryan felt ready. He followed Clara into the conference room, his notebook in hand, and took a seat near the end of the table. Mr. Harper was already there, reviewing a presentation on his tablet. He glanced up as Ryan entered, offering him a small nod. Glad you could join us, Ryan, he said. The meeting began, and Ryan watched in awe as Mr. Harper and Clara led the discussion with ease. Their professionalism and attention to detail were unmatched, and Ryan found himself inspired by the way they commanded the room. This time, he felt more prepared, even offering a few observations when asked. Each contribution was met with nods of approval. and Ryan's confidence grew with every moment. After the meeting, as the client left with a satisfied handshake, Mr. Harper turned to Ryan. "You did well today. I can see you're starting to find your footing." Ryan smiled, feeling a rush of pride. "Thank you, sir. I'm learning a lot." Mr. Harper nodded. "Good. Keep pushing yourself. This is just the beginning." That afternoon, Clara surprised Ryan with another opportunity. "I think it's time for you to lead a task," she said, handing him a folder filled with client data. "We need a summary report by the end of the day. It's not an easy one, but I believe you can handle it." Ryan's stomach flipped, but he took the folder with determination. "I'll do my best." The next few hours were a test of everything he had learned. Ryan pored over the data, double-checking every detail and making careful notes. When he hit a snag, Clara was there to guide him, offering advice without taking over. By the time he finished, he felt both exhausted and accomplished. Clara reviewed his work, a satisfied smile spreading across her face. "You nailed it, Ryan. This is excellent." Ryan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thanks, Clara. I couldn't have done it without your help." "You give me too much credit," she said, waving him off. "This was all you." As the workday came to a close, Ryan was called back to Mr. Harper's office. The older man stood by the window, looking out over the city as Ryan entered. "Ryan," he said, turning to face him, "I wanted to take a moment to commend you on your work so far. Clara speaks highly of you, and I've seen it myself. You have potential, more than even you might realize." Ryan shifted on his feet, unsure how to respond. "Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to make the most of this opportunity." Mr. Harper smiled. "And you're doing just that. But I want you to know, this isn't where your journey ends. If you keep working hard and growing, there's no limit to what you can achieve. I see a bright future for you here, Ryan." Ryan felt a swell of emotion, his voice thick as he replied, "That means more than I can say. Sir, thank you for believing in me." Mr. Harper stepped closer, resting a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "You've earned it, Ryan. Now, go home and get some rest. You've had a big week." That evening, Ryan walked into his apartment feeling lighter than he had in years. His mom was waiting for him, her face lighting up as he sat beside her. "How was today?" she asked, her voice filled with warmth. Ryan smiled, pulling out a small stack of papers. "Amazing. And look, I got my first official task done." Clara said it was great. His mom's eyes brimmed with pride as she took the papers from him. "You're doing it, Ryan. You're really doing it." Ryan nodded, his chest swelling with emotion. For the first time, he felt like he was building something real, not just for himself, but for his mom, too. They spent the evening talking about the future, about the possibilities that suddenly seemed within reach. As Ryan lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, he thought about how much had changed in such a short time. It had all started with a simple act of kindness, a moment where he chose to do the right thing despite the cost. And now, his life was on a new trajectory, one filled with hope, opportunity, and the promise of a better tomorrow. Ryan closed his eyes, a small smile on his face. This was just the beginning, and he was ready for whatever came next.